Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul, and I don't know if it's just me, but does anyone else think The Stand is Randall lagging a bit after episode 3? I think by far this was my least favourite of those released, and I found the time jumps to be a bit all over the place. If you're confused by exactly what's going on, then don't worry, as we're going to be breaking it all down and discussing the main book differences. Obviously, full spoilers ahead from here on out, though I will keep some of the bigger elements of the book a secret to not spoil some certain surprises. Now if you enjoyed the video, please smash the thumbs up button and make sure you subscribe for breakdowns of the series every week. With that out of the way, Happy New Year, I'm your host Paul, now let's get into the breakdown. Okay, so episode 3 sort of fills in the backstories of some of the side characters that we've been introduced to, and primarily we focus on Nadine and Nick. Now you may remember that last week we caught Nadine being drawn towards a planchette, and in this episode we see the device ties all the way back to her childhood. Similar to the source material, Nadine was an orphan, but rather than living with her aunt and uncle like in the book, we see her starting off in a home. Through the planchette, Randall Flagg is able to contact her, and he clearly has had eyes on her from a young age. The villain carves into the floor, "Nadine will be my queen. We are in the house of the dead, Nadine," which yeah, you know what mate, you can have her. Now even as an adult, Nadine is still a virgin, and this is because throughout her life, Flagg has contacted her and told her to save herself for him. Though many men have shot their shot, some dark forces always swept in and scared them off, but like I said again, yeah, you can have her. Now in the present, we catch her waking up in a bed, and to everyone's surprise, Amber Heard hasn't pooped in it. I'll stop, I'm sorry. Elsewhere, Larry and Stu are doing their rounds, which is when a yellow sports car arrives with a man from Las Vegas in it. If you've been paying close attention to the series so far, then you'll have noticed the signs that have been placed throughout Flagg's dreamscape, and Larry himself was also tempted with one that looked very similar to the car key. Though it initially seems like this man has escaped, it's revealed that Flagg let him go in order to send a message. Now the source material goes into a lot about why Flagg crucifies those that he sees as defying his commands, and I actually felt like this subplot was one of the better parts of the episode. It let us know exactly what kind of person he is without showing us, and makes Vegas ever more intriguing, even though we know it might be some weeks before we make it to the location. Through Nadine, we see her first meeting with Larry, in which Joe attacked him. Joe is sort of a feral child in many ways that's seen a lot of messed up stuff, and thus he has a murderous side to him that makes him lash out whenever he feels threatened. He's definitely the dark horse of the series, and what's worse is that Nadine has an influence over him, which obviously hints at what's in store due to her connection with Flagg. Through the flashbacks, we also get confirmation that Rita did indeed end her own life. Now in our last breakdown, I said that because they didn't show her body, I thought they might be differing from the source material. In the book, Larry wakes up to find her corpse, and it's one of the most shocking scenes in the work, but here they skipped over it, so I did hold out hope. However, we do know that she is indeed dead, and who knows, we might learn more about Larry waking up as we go down the line. Anyway, Nadine has been put in charge of the school, which is an extremely dangerous position due to how she can corrupt the minds of the youngsters there. She also comes face to face with Harold, who seems to spook Joe slightly, and we discover that Flagg wants Nadine to recruit him at the end of the entry. When she's talking with Larry, we can also see the signs left behind by Harold, and as we know from last time, he followed these across the country. Now we jump to Franny getting an ultrasound on her baby, and confirm that Stu isn't the father. Though this was never the case in the book, after the first episode, due to her not telling her father she was pregnant, I did assume that things had changed and they'd made Stu the dad, but they stayed in line with the original work in the end. Now what is different though, is that Stu doesn't stay with them after the first encounter, and it's clear early on that Harold views him as a threat. Originally, he joined the pair by hinting towards Harold that he didn't want to ruin the pair's relationship and that he wouldn't be making a move. This was of course a lie, but the changing of this allows for him to meet Glenn, played by none other than Greg Kinnear. Now what I love about Harold is that he pretty much berates Stu and clearly views him as someone that will swoop Fran off her feet rather than being a legitimate enemy. Stu could have killed them at any point had he wanted to, but Harold still says that he could be secretly Jeffrey Dahmer when we know that he's more in line with him than Mr. Redman is. Stu to me has always been the way that Harold wishes that he'd come across, but no matter how many Tom Cruise mirror points he tries, he'll never quite fool Fran. Stu is pretty much the knight in shining armour that comes in to rescue her, and it's going to be interesting to see if they meet up on the road again or at their destination. An interesting question that Fran asks is whether her child could also have immunity, but before we get any answers, the crucified man is brought in and things sort of segue into Nick's backstory. The deaf mute was assaulted in a bar at Shoyo, and because of the attack, he lost sight in one of his eyes. In the original work, his story very much chronicled how Captain Trips ravaged the town, but here it's cut down to just a hospital visit. Now he also dreams of Flag, who very much fills in his backstory, using the metaphor of being dealt a bad hand whilst showing cards to the character. Flag wants Nick to become his right-hand man, and as we know from last time, this job actually fell to Lloyd. I think Flag wants to tempt those that have had a tough time with a better life, but Nick declines it, and thus this shows Abigail that he's worthy of being her voice. Nick is just a genuinely nice guy, and is even merciful to the guy that made him lose his eye, which is symbolic in many ways. Flag very much goes after people who have an eye for an eye mentality, but the fact that Nick literally loses one and still comforts the person that assaulted him shows his strength of character. Now, he meets an autistic man named Tom, who was sent from Abigail, and this is mirrored in the meeting of Stu and Glenn. They're very much kindred spirits, and he's far more welcoming to Stu than Harold was, hinting at the division that could be at the camp before they even get there. Now we learn that dogs, horses and guinea pigs are also killed by Trips as well. The latter is suggested by Stu, and as we know from the first episode, they were kept in the medical centre where he was observed. Through Glenn's paintings, he and Stu discover that they've both been having dreams about Abigail. After he uncovers Fran's one, it's taken as an omen, and they then head out together. We also see Nick gains a voice from Abigail, and though he was offered one by Flag, he did turn it down. This gives us the idea that he's a good judge of character, and because of this, we know that Abigail must be one too. Now Tom is actually a really kind-hearted guy, and though he's not good with social cues, he definitely doesn't mean to do anyone any harm. In the source material, his father ran away when he was younger, and his mother raised him on her own. Unfortunately, she also died of Captain Trips. In the work, they flesh out their journey to Abigail's a lot more, and I can imagine that this will pop up down the line. Because Nick can't talk, he sort of has to pantomime things to Tom in order to communicate, and I hope they capture their friendship in the series, as it's one of the more light-hearted moments of it. Other than all the death and destruction they see, of course. Now cut to Larry singing Baby Can You Dig Your Man at the baseball stadium, and I kinda was hoping that we'd see the Yankee Yanker from last time, but unfortunately he's not there. Not all heroes wear capes. Now this is a flashback on the road, and it's probably the moment that stuck out to me as being a bit disjointed. This episode, yeah, it jumps back and forward through time quite a lot, and it just gets very muddled by the end of it, with this being the prime example. Now though I have my criticisms here, the composition of this moment is really good, as we see Larry reaching out to Joe through music and encouraging him to play. He's on one side whilst Nadine is on the other. I think this hints to the audience that going forward, these will pretty much be the two sides that Joe can choose from. In the present, the committee gather to discuss democracy, who should lead the group, and whether they should tell the settlers about Flag. This discussion is interrupted by Abigail, who talks to the man, and he reveals he brought a message to her from Flag. It's creepy as hell and hints towards what's going on in Vegas. During one of the flashbacks, we actually catch the carpet from The Shining, which of course is another one of King's works. We also learn that Flag has been enslaving people, and in many ways, Lloyd and Nadine are slaves, though they are accepting of it. During the reveal, the man is possessed by Flag in order to deliver a message to Abigail, and he tells her that he has blood in his fists, and that she should pray God takes her before she hears his boots. He ends by saying, "I'm gonna blow your house down," and this is a callback to not only Jack in The Shining, but of course the big bad wolf. We close out the entry with Nadine contacting Flag once more, and discover that she is indeed spying on the camp for him. Because of Abigail, Flag can't enter it, and he's been using her as his eyes, even though she hates it in Boulder. Flag tells her that he wants the witch to be killed, along with the other 5 puppets there. Nadine twirls the stone that we saw her with last week, and clearly she was longing for Flag when touching this. Flag also used one to free Lloyd, and the one Nadine has is obviously around for a special reason. Now, as we know, Harold is unstable and already contemplating murdering Stu and Fran. Thus, Flag has singled him out and wants Nadine to be the one to push him into doing this. This will allow her to remain in the camp under the radar whilst Harold takes the fall. Harold's mate already made Nadine seem like one of the most beautiful women on earth. I think that this was put in place to hint to him that Harold should basically worship her. As we know, he has an unhealthy relationship with women and will go above and beyond to be with one, so I think this is a smart move by Flag. The episode ends with Harold and his mate chucking the crucified man's body into a ditch, and he hauntingly says it'll be the first of many. Anyway, that wraps up the episode, and don't forget that on the 30th of January we're giving away 3 copies of The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings 4K box set to our subscribers. All you have to do to be on the chance of winning is like the video, make sure you subscribe with notifications on, and drop a comment below with your thoughts on the episode. The winners of last month's competition are on screen right now, so if that's you, then message me on Twitter at Heavy Spoilers. If you want something else to watch, then make sure you check out our breakdown of last week, which kind of goes over the ins and outs of Nadine's backstory, as well as what we could expect with Joe. If not, then you know what, as much as I don't like you right now, I hope you have a happy new year and wish you all the best for 2021. You take care of yourself. Peace.